Hello viewers, we're back again with this Honeywell HYF013W tower fan, and the owner does want it back, so we're going to go through here and do a full cleaning service on this thing. It is running now, but it's not running the way it should be, not quite. So let's see what we can do here. And that pesky thing fell into a box of batteries. There you go. This, I think we're gonna just forget about that. This is funny, man. Alright, we got 3 screws here we need to undo. They're not the same size, so we're going to keep note of which ones go where. This has got to come off again. Okay, this is being kind of a nuisance. Okay, well that certainly takes some effort to get that off of there. What a pain in the neck. Okay. Alright, so this time we're going to take everything out and we're going to do a proper cleaning service. Pull the bearing out up front here. There's 2 screws in there keeping it in. Kind of hard to get to because they're on an angle, but it'll come out okay. Okay, and then on the other end, we'll get this off. With that screw. Okay. These are such a pain in the rear to clean. I may just douse this in like condenser cleaner or something and let it soak for a minute. Okay, so now let's see here. Cord goes all the way through the bottom, so we may complicate things by taking the cord out. I think I'm not going to do that. I think I'm just going to wash it with with everything in place. This in fact is a very it's a very clean dust, if you will, so we may be able to just kind of brush it off and it'll all come out no problem. So maybe I'll just do a dry cleaning on that. In fact, that may mean this will just rinse off real easy even with just water. Alright, let's get into the motor here. So to get it off, looks like we're going to have to remove probably 4 screws. Okay, that's free now. And that's enough slack to service it. Okay, as far as this is concerned, this is going to be a little bit messy, but I'm just going to go through here and kind of sweep all this out of here. I decided to do some wet cleaning as well because it wasn't getting quite as clean as I would like it to be. Now it's looking pretty good. Okay, so now let's get into this motor and get it properly lubricated. It looks like there's a separate motor for the oscillations, and that motor probably has just failed. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that. So for the motor, we have a little clip on there that has to come off first. And that should just come off with a set of pliers. Okay, and this got a little bit wet here, but I'm not worried about it because we're going to be cleaning it out anyways. Jeez, that timer is quite noisy. Okay, so we're going to remove the 4 screws. Jeez. Okay. We'll go screw, washer, and then nut on the bottom. Okay, this is going to be stubborn to get apart. Have to do this very carefully because you can easily jack up the windings if the screwdriver goes too far in there. Okay, that came apart pretty easily. So now we have the front, which is not wanting to come off, which is annoying because I need it to come off. So I'm going to put it back on. Let's get it aligned real quick. I'm going to power it on and we're going to stand it down a bit. Where is the sandpaper? Here it is. It's oscillating. Okay, so that's working now. Let's see if that was enough. Almost. I'm going to finish off the end so it's not coarse at all. It's a little bit coarse right now. I don't want it to be like that. That'll damage the bearing surface. Okay. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to clean all this out. Couple of thrust washers in here. Okay, so this in fact looks pretty clean. Very small contamination amounts in there. So we'll just go through this pretty quickly. No reason to spend more time on it than necessary. Because it wasn't the motor bearings that was having the problem anyways, it was the bearing on the top that was locked. So this is all spinning freely, so there's not much to do here. Back, on the other hand, is having some issues. There's some sticky lubricant on the back, so let's clean that out. Some of these threads here are pretty loose. Shouldn't be like that. That should be very tight on there. No, nothing's made correctly anymore. Alright, so that's good. Good to go. That's all cleaned up now. It's moving freely on there. Gotta get the oil for fans out. Fans, right there on the box. This is the blue can of the 3-in-1. We can do that, or we can use zooming spout, which is specifically for electric motors. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill up a couple drops of oil inside there onto that material in there that holds the bearing. Just spilled it everywhere in there. Not good. Okay. Alright, that should be good for that. It's got oil in there now. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in here. Make sure all that can spin freely if it wants to. Okay, now we'll drop this back in. Good. Okay, and same thing with the front. Couple of good whacks to get it into alignment. Okay, now put the screws in. Probably the screws ought to go in first before smacking the alignment into place. Looks like in this case, yeah, it'll be the four outside screws were for the motor housing. These don't have to go particularly tight. It's more important that the tightness is symmetrical. This is a very low power drill. This is only 3.6 volts. This isn't going to get it that tight. It doesn't have to be. Okay, now with all the bolts tightened, spinning pretty freely. Good. Okay. So that's that. Make sure there's no excess oil dripping off the bottom. Don't see any. I'll put a drop or two in each bearing just for good measure. Okay, the motor's good. Let's give it one more test and then it should be fine. Okay, sounds much better than it was a few minutes ago. Now we can put it back in place. The blade's shaft has two wear marks on it, which are kind of odd. One at the top and one at the bottom on one side each. Wonder if it's like not perfectly straight or something. Anyway, so we have another bearing, not on the motor. This fan really has three bearings. It has the two bearings on the motor, and then it has this bearing here. And this bearing, I think, does not have any wicking in there to keep the oil on it. That's probably why this dried out. I have seen in a lot of these tower fans that these bearings will dry out before the motor's bearings do. And so that's just, it's just got to keep it oiled, that's all. Not much you can do about that. Alright, that's clean. Gonna put the blade back on the shaft now. There's a flat part of the shaft. Zoom this thing in here. That flat part there, which is facing the camera. Actually, there's one more thing that's got to go on there first. This the stopper has to go on. Yeah, it just kind of presses on there. That, and then the flat part of the shaft is where the screw is going to align to. Okay, this doesn't have to be very tight either, just enough to keep the alignment in place. And there we go, the blade is now reattached to the motor. Okay, so let's take the other bearing here and put this on. There's a little notch there that aligns with that tab. Going to put a little bit of oil on here first. And we're going to have an issue with this again, I think, because there's nothing really keeping the oil in this bearing. I think the bearing itself just sits in the rubber piece here. So, that's not a great design, but that seems to be what it is. Alright, so I've got a little bit of oil on both places. Put that on there. It's got to go like this. And it sits in there like that. Okay, and it's spinning a lot more freely than it was before, though it still locks, kind of locks up a little bit there towards the end. I don't know if there's really a way to align this top bearing or not. I think it's still on the stiffer side. I don't know, that may just be whatever it is. I mean, it's not terrible like this, but it's less than I would expect. It should coast for a little while longer than that. Oh, can this be adjusted at all? Yeah, it can be adjusted ever so slightly. Maybe we need to adjust it here. And it don't seem to make a whole lot of difference either way. Oh well, I don't know. It seems like it's fine until it starts to get slow. You know, once it slows down and it really locks up. I don't know what's going on with this. I think it should run just fine, but I would be concerned about the same thing happening again. Well, it's whatever it is. It's a cheap fan and a cheap bearing. It may just be that way. I'm going to put a couple drops of oil in there, just for good measure. And we're going to be done with that. Because I don't think it's going to get any better. Not happy with the way it is, but I can't make it any better than that. Alright, let's power it up and test everything, make sure it's all working. It's already running. It's moving a lot more than it was before. This seems to me like it stops awfully quickly. Yeah, water everywhere. Okay, so here's a low. That's working. The medium is working. And the high is also working. There's a decent amount of air too. And the oscillations are not working. They were working for a very brief period of time, and now they are not working. There it goes. Now they're working. I'm not sure what causes them to work and then stop working. I don't know. Okay, it's working. Turn it off. Yeah, I'm not happy with that spin down time at all. It's very tight. I mean, there's no way that this is like, it's not doing anything. Oh. There we go. I guess it's not aligned correctly. There we go, that's better. Okay, now we're getting there. Maybe I gotta just smack this around a bit. Okay, that I could be content with. Still not great, but I can live with that. Okay. Let's finish the assembly. Okay. I'm not putting that funny man thing back on there. There's no need for that. Because this, I mean, all this does is just, like, it looks nicer with it there, okay, but all it does is make it harder to service. So, it's just, whatever. Okay, now it's in. Alright, here we go. It's all back together now. Much cleaner than it was, and it should be working better than it was. Okay, it's working. Let's see if those oscillations are working right now. They are. That rattling is. There we go. Okay, well that concludes the cleaning and repair of this Honeywell Oscillations tower fan.